There are a few ways I like to use onion in my kitchen. The first, of course, is cooking. They are just so yummy. But the second is the food waste that comes from using onions, and that is the skins. Both red and yellow onion skins can create beautiful natural color in your dye pot. And in today's video, we're going to look at how to use them to make echo prints. It's a very simple process, so grab yourself some onion skins and a piece of fiber, and let's start steaming some beautiful prints. Now, if you joined us last week on Color Quest, we used onion skins in the dye pot along with a few other food wastes to make some beautifully dyed macrame cord to use in a project. Using food waste as a dye source just feels good. So before putting it in the compost pile, you can invite some of their rich colors into your world. Now today, we'll be looking at onion skins specifically for botanical printing. They can make some very unique designs if you simply use them in a steam bath to welcome that color. Let's look at some of the supplies we'll need, and today it's very simple. So here are the things that we're going to be using today. We have both yellow and red onion skins. I'm actually going to cover them with water and let them soak. We're going to want different sizes, so make sure to have larger pieces that you can then rip up into smaller pieces, but also working with these two fibers, because they're high in tannin and dry, we're going to want to make them wet just to help with that color starting to come through. We also have our fiber. I'm going to be using cotton today. This cotton has been pre-treated with soy milk. So that is just a simple way to use another food product to invite a stronger bond onto your fiber. I won't be going through that process. You can watch last week's process where I talked more about using soy milk, and I have a video here. Just a few notes about using soy milk as a binder. If you do so, make sure that you get soy milk that has no sugar in it, unsweetened. And I always try to get an organic brand because then it's just soybeans. Now, if you want to make your own, you're welcome to do that. That would be a wonderful option to give you some really good protein strength to your binder. All you got to do is soak your fiber, preferably overnight, and then let it dry. You're going to do that to help cure it. If you have the time and can do this a good week in advance and do several soaks in your soy milk, that's awesome. If you decide that you do not want to do the soy milk binding process, that's okay. Onion skins are high in tannin, so they're a great option for using with fiber for printing. However, if you have the time and the resources, I suggest you try soy milk because that will just encourage potentially a stronger bond. Now, although we're going to be probably using our fingers to rip these up, you can also use scissors to cut different shapes and strips, and sometimes that can be easier. I'm going to be using a dowel today to wrap my fiber up with the design. And I'm going to need some tongs as well in order to put this dowel into the steam pot. Now for binding itself, I am going to be using a sheet that I've ripped up. I'm starting to use this now in my dye practice because unlike string, which can leave a mark on your print, or rubber bands, using something like this makes it smoother and less likely to leave marks on the outside. However, if you do not have old scraps that you can rip up into long pieces of binding, you are welcome to use string or rubber bands. Finally, I have some barrier paper and or plastic. Today I'm going to be using just parchment paper as a barrier, and this is to help keep the print from printing back on itself. You can also use recycled plastic. although I'm finding that plastic sometimes acts as a deterrent for getting that steam in. So I'm going to use paper today, and this is just simple parchment paper. All right, let's get working on our design. So my dowel is just 12 inches, but my piece of fiber is 17 across. So I'm not going to be putting any of the onion skins on the outer edge. I'm going to want to keep the onion skins within the realm of the dowel. The reason for that is because we're trying to form a nice tight contact between the fiber, and the wood dowel is making that happen, as well as our binding fiber. You'll notice on the binding fiber I cut the end, and that is to have a place to tie it off, and you'll see when I bind that up. So for the paper, I can put the paper underneath, which makes it really easy, or I can design and then place the paper on top of the onions. I think for today I'm going to go ahead and put the paper underneath, because then when I roll it, it's nice and easy, and it will form that barrier so that any print that I have is not going to print back on itself. This piece of parchment paper that I have is just about 12 inches. So that'll also help me to know where I can have my onions. Now for your design, you can work with something that's very tight and formed, a mandala, or you can just do a simple scattered pattern. We are going to be using steam today because we're looking for a crisper print on our onion skins. If you decide you want to put your fiber into water itself for the cooking process, you will get beautiful colors, but they will have a watercolor effect. I'm looking for some tighter prints, and hopefully by using steam we can achieve that. Now the steam process can vary depending upon what kind of dye matter you're using. Onion skins are pretty tough. They're going to require a longer period of time in the steam. If you're using fresh flowers for an echo print, you can often achieve your print within about 10 or 15 minutes in the steam. Today, however, we're going to have it in the steam bath for at least 90 minutes in order for the color to come out from the onion skins. That's why I have them in water now soaking, because I'm hoping that will soften them up a little bit, makes it easier to work with them, and also encourage that color to start coming a little bit earlier in the steam process. I'm going to be mixing larger pieces with smaller pieces. I'll be ripping, and in some instances I will be cutting even strips to make really thin pieces like this. And I'm going to try to vary the size and shape of these just because it's more visually interesting to look at. So as you're working, if you want to move pieces around, by all means do that. I like to start with the largest pieces, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add much smaller pieces in between and probably frayed out to the edges with smaller pieces. I'm also going to be spraying them from time to time because I'm finding that when I'm working, if If I take too much time, the onion skins start to dry out and then they become harder to work with. So before I wrap this up, I will give it a nice douse with the spray bottle in order to wet everything down before we bundle it up. So there you have it. So very pretty. I really love how it turned out, and loving these lines around the different onion skins. It's a little sharper on this side than this side, and that has to do with how I rolled it. So I started on this side and rolled it this way, which means this part of the fiber was outside. So it got a bit more steam, probably hotter faster, but I still just love how it all turned out. And I still got some really nice prints. I mean, that just looks like an onion skin. So very pretty. You can see the difference between the red and the yellow. It's slight, but overall as a composition it works really well. In certain instances, red onion skin, oops, there's still a little skin there. Red onion skin can actually turn green in this kind of environment and even in the dye pot. I have done a print like this on a fiber that was pre-treated with aluminum acetate, and I got green. This is what it looks like, and really beautiful. I also got some more vivid yellows. That most likely is associated with the pre-treatment. This being soy, it's going to turn out differently, but soy is also very accessible to most people because it is a food source. Now I also wanted to show you the parchment paper just because it's pretty. It also had various shapes. I'll probably keep this piece and I can always cut it up and use it in other things. So if you put a piece of paper in as your barrier that will pick up things like this, or even a piece of fiber, then that's another way that you can allow yourself to have a secondary ghost print. Looks pretty. But there you have it. I'm going to actually let these air dry completely before I give them a rinse. And then I'm going to have this beautifully printed piece of fiber. Onion skins. How easy, right? Super happy with how that came out. And now that I can see it dried, it's just so pretty. It has a kind of rust quality to it, and the different shapes and the way in which the onion skins interacted in different parts of the textile just makes it so pretty to look at. So I hope you will try that out. It is really easy to do. Just keep saving those onion skins and you'll have enough to do all kinds of wonderful projects with the food waste of onion skins. So next week, let's keep on keeping on with the wonderful world of food waste. And this time, I'd like to take the scraps of what we've already used in our projects and repurpose them one more time. And that is to make what I like to call a confetti effect. So I hope you will join me next Friday. And I also want to wish you wonderful holidays this time of the year. So enjoy your family time, and I will see you next time on Color Quest.